Jake, it's good to see you regardless.
Good to see you as well. At least football season's here.
Exactly. And I figure we're talking so much Commanders these days. Might as well do a little season recap on these Washington Nationals since the season is now just days from ending. It's funny. We were talking about opening day and how excited we were and the expectations for this team and how they were going to take that next step forward. What happened, Jake? Not necessarily what we thought was going to happen this year.
Yeah, that's the bill of goods that was being sold before the season was, we're going to take the next step this year. We've got these veteran pieces we're filling in around these young guys. And clearly the veteran pieces they brought in did not work. And I feel like this is going to be a momentous offseason in terms of how ownership decides it wants to go. It's going to be, no offense, but the offseason is going to be so much more interesting than this season has been.
I think that's a pretty fair take, honestly. And we have so much to dive into the offseason itself. But when it comes to baseball and the product we saw on the field this year, you mentioned the young guys really having to, bear the brunt of all of this. I think we can look at that as a positive, though, because I don't want this whole interview to be negative and the Nats, bad at this, bad at that. But in terms of those guys, Dalen Lyle, Robert Hassel, guys who got pulled up this season and were actually able to, kind of perform in terms of those expectations not being very high. What did you see from some of those young guys?
Yeah, like the guys you brought up, Dalen Lyle has really impressed me this season. He's just got so much energy and just fight in him, and that's something you want to see from a young guy. He was a relatively highly touted prospect for the team, but the jump he has made to contending for a full-time roster spot has been really impressive to see. Brad Lord has performed admirably this season, especially considering, this past offseason he was working in Home Depot. It's quite a jump to make from working at Home Depot in the winter to posting an impressive rookie season as a starting MLB pitcher, actually fluctuating from the bullpen to starting pitcher.
Let's dive into some of those pitchers and even the bullpen if you want to get into it. What did you see just from that collective group as a whole? Because there were certain guys, Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, guys we wanted to see take that step heading into this season. And did they, perform up to snuff in your opinion?
Well, Jake Irvin's, for lack of a better phrase, downfall this season was pretty surprising and incredibly disappointing considering how well and how admirably he played last season. I did not see this kind of, drop off coming from him. For Mackenzie Gore, he performed very well. He was obviously had an all-star type of season. Went to the all-star game, but then after the all-star break, had a little bit of a downturn a bit. For some reason, it's weird. It seems like the all-star break can make or break someone's season. It seems like a tale of two seasons for a lot of guys. The bullpen, it was absolutely brutal to start the year. But then once they got rid of their free agent acquisitions they brought in past offseason, then the young guys that filled in, like the Cole Henrys of the world, and Jose Ferrer, once he got regular time on on a high leverage situations, those guys started to stabilize the bullpen, which is something no one saw coming in the spring with the way the season started. It became one of the most reliable parts of the team.
Let's talk about our other all-star, James Wood, because I felt like whenever you and I, caught up during the season and, we were kind of looking for positives when it came to what this team was putting out on the field. And we always said the name James Wood in terms of who was, playing well and doing what he needed to do to help this team succeed. What did you see from him, first half of the season, second half of the season, and then, of course, him being one of those pieces that the Nats will look to lean on in the future?
Yeah, he's actually who I was thinking of when I said tale of two seasons before and after the All-Star break. And also with him, the home run derby, I think, played a factor in how his season has gone since the middle of the summer. He had a phenomenal hot first half of the season, and I don't know what it was about it, whether it was his mechanics or his patience or vision at the plate. But from what I've seen as an overall picture, I've seen just a big difference from him from the first half of the season to the second half. Maybe he just needs this off season coming up as a point in time to just look at what he's done. It's going to be fascinating to see how different he looks as a more mature ball player with finally a full major league season under his belt.
Dylan Cruz, another one that's, kind of interesting. I mean, the season he had is probably one he'd like to forget, but do you see him kind of turning the page here in the offseason and being able to come back to this team and, ready to go into that's going to be his third season now?
And I think once he got back from the injury, it maybe took him a little bit to kind of get back in the flow of things. But once he did, you could kind of see the consistent, steady presence. The results obviously weren't there as a batter because, if you're just hitting a little over 200, that's not good. You need to do at least 250, 275. If you're not going to be a big power home run guy, you'd at least be on base a lot more.
In terms of last year and even 2 years ago, I felt like a lot of us were heading into the off season like, okay, like we've got some momentum at least a little bit, and we're looking forward to next season to see them take that next step. But please correct me if I'm wrong. This feels like one of those seasons where we're like, whew, I'm so glad this season's finally over.
No argument for me on that one. For me, I think I've said this before in our past interviews. I feel like the proof will be in the pudding in terms of what kind of budget the learners give whoever's in charge of the roster. If they give them a tiny budget like they've been giving Mike Rizzo the last few years, nothing's going to change.
Paint the picture of your ideal offseason for this team.
Whew. Um, at least one or two top tier starting pitchers, whether that's through trade or free agency. There's so many things I could do. It's so
Yeah. Yeah, I remember a lot of people were hoping this was going to be a 500 team this year. Sadly, not going to be the case, but Jake, always great insight. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, more Toyota Sports Talk coming up on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.